the head of music. Thank you, Delia. I observed the head of music with, I'm ABA, Annabelle Bates, with a new teacher, Juliet, who was having some challenging times with a particular class. So I took her to observe an outstanding teacher teach the same class. Also, Aisling Ryan, who's one of our assistant principals, observed the head of languages with a new teacher. She was also observed, she's above there, she was also observed by a new teacher the same week. So as Delia said, the senior team are constantly observing and being observed by other teachers.
Can you tell them also, I'm on that list, but
yes.
I fell off.
You can see Delia observed on Friday this week, which is why she's not on the list, because I only got to Thursday morning. Lots and lots of observation, and this is a typical week in our school. And what's useful about this approach is it enables me, as it's my job to coordinate, to choose the best observations. So yes, we observe people to monitor their teaching, but we also put certain people observing other people to allow them to learn from each other, as Delia said. And out of these observations, approximately 80% are people requesting to observe or be observed. I have emails every week from teachers saying, please can somebody observe me with this class next week? Please can the principal observe me? Please can you observe me? Please can I observe you? And the only reason I would ever say no is to do with logistics. Maybe someone else is already observing me, for example. Other than that, absolutely, 90% of the time, I say yes. And if I say no, I normally schedule for the following week. So our observation culture is very open. What we're going to do now is we're going to watch some short extracts of lessons. And I'd like you, don't worry about Ofsted yet. Don't think about, is this inadequate, is this outstanding? I just want to hear your thoughts on whether what you see is good and why, or whether it's not very good and why. Okay? So we're going to watch the first clip. Eva, when you're ready.
It's amazing what you see on video.
Why video is so powerful, it captures everything. So, who would like to volunteer their thoughts? And I have permission from the teacher to show you these, and believe me, they have received feedback. So none of this will be news. So please be honest in your reaction. Any volunteers? Ah.
I was wondering, was that in class?
Yes.
And was there some kind of activity that they have free time to do something, or it's just meanwhile somebody's teaching?
There was an activity.
They were writing.
Yes, they were writing.
Okay.
So what did you think?
I didn't saw anybody writing that.
You didn't see anyone writing? Good. There was some writing. I think this student is more interested in their pen. Yes.
So, that's what you think. I think that this might be a very creative person who is either creating a poem or trying to prove a theorem, which is much more interesting than answering a test with multiple choice.
Oh, it's not multiple choice.
For example,
Multiple choice.
but there are kids who are immediately involved in writing, just to finish a task that is given,
Sure.
and some that are more creative minds, and I would rather go for the kid who might even be thinking of a new type of pen.
Absolutely. That's a very positive outlook, and I appreciate that. I would ask you about the children with the fingers and whether you think they're creative as well.
Can I say also the major criteria for Ofsted, but also for us, at the end of the lesson,
You haven't got a mic.
sorry, my mic, the major criteria for Ofsted at the end of the lesson is how much progress did the children make by the end of the lesson. We don't ask what the teacher did, we say what progress did the children make. Finger painting, very good.
Yes. Can I have one more opinion from somewhere else in the room? I think Katie's. Yeah.
Well, for me, the teacher was missing from the whole situation. So yes, there are kids who can work on their own, and some that need to be reminded that they need to be doing some things. And
Yes.
for me, the teacher was missing.
Yes, good point. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to a very different lesson.
So, our first skill, who can remember now from the learning objectives what the skill was? The actual skill, Lucas?
So the seat drop.
It was the seat drop, excellent. How are we going to know if we're doing it correctly? What were our key control words today? No. Aesthetics, who can tell now what aesthetics means? We'll build on it, deviation. What it looks like. What's it going to look ugly? So it looks good. So we're going to see if we can do a sequence that looks good. What two key words can we use to help us to know if it looks good? Cameron?
When you do the seat drop, you have to do like a pack shape when you land. So
Okay, hold that. I want to come back to the words that we can use to know whether it looks good. Control, so is it under control? And is it fluid? So is it controlled and fluid, which leads it to looking nice? Come back to Cameron's point in a moment. So understand that. You've never been taught it. Hands down. Good job. Right, so I'm going to stand up above here. I'm going to ask you a question I've never been taught today. So can you put me now into the seat drop position, please? Okay. Cameron's got his hand up. Cameron?
you would sit down on the trampoline, and then you would place both of your hands so they're facing forward towards your feet, on the right beside like your bottom, as in closer to your and then you would point your toes. I think, as in point them forward.
See the difference though between point your toes and point your forward? Instruction's important. Now Cameron used a word earlier, he called this shape, it's a gymnastic shape. You can pick up this one out. It was a pike shape, we did do it last year. Alright, it's a pike shape. So a pike in the air would be our hip, hands. But because we're doing a seat drop, we want to have contact with the trampoline. Cameron, you're actually spot on, well done. My hands are pointing forward, and they're alongside my hips or my bum. Slide back. This is the correct seat drop position. When I showed it to you, I want you guys to check my legs. So I want you to check that this is happening. I want you guys to check my upper body. Okay? How would you describe this angle? Right angle. So I want you to see how I'm getting the bed at a right angle. I just want you to see are my arms in the correct position. And is my head carried in the correct position as well. So this is it. This is the seat drop. So, good, hands up, well done. So I'm here, I'm on the cross. A seat drop. There was a lot of me on the trampoline. What part of the body do you think I want to land on that cross? Come on, Ellie. Good, my boss. Correct. My boss. Right. So I'm here, and we're going to go from the push and go technique, which is, you guys can see me okay? What part of my body are you looking for massaging? Upper body, you guys? Legs, excellent. Just my legs? Feet. Here we go. Ellie, pay attention. It's a push and go. I'm not going to leave the trampoline until I actually do the seat drop. I'm not technically bouncing, I'm pushing. That's a push. A bounce is very different. That's a mat. Okay? So push and go to a seat drop. And I'm just going to stay on the bed and I'm going to come back up. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. No, I did come back up. I didn't follow my instructions, so do it again. And 1, 2, 3. And stop.
Okay, again, I'd take your honest feedback for that teacher. What do you think of what you saw? Anyone? No, I'd just take feedback. Anybody? Yeah,
Thank you. Well,
You've always start with a question.
well, this time it's only my observation. I see that he attracted their attention so much that they actually was not only looking at him but analyzing what he's doing and how he's doing it, and also what made me see the difference is that one of the kids was actually telling him how to do it, so he was letting them find a way to do it, and that's the way of creating it.
Very
And
good, yes.
thank you.
What as Delia said yesterday, one of our 13 treasures is dialogue, and learning taking place through dialogue, and that's vital. Would anyone from a different table? I'm sorry. I know you've
Just
got.
to add one thing, if I might. This shows how great a lesson could be without a computer. Because you could do the same thing with, let's say, the turtle geometry. When you give commands and you see the effect of your commands,
Yes.
and you can reason on your own commands. And here, this could be a math lesson. So
Sure.
you could use the same platform for the
Absolutely.
coordinate system and do the same thing.
Yes, and as I said, the McKinsey report found that the teacher was the most important element, not the computer, for example. Okay, one more. Yes.
За мен урокът започна добре, защото учителят започна вече с научените правила, след което се включи ученик, който му показваше, диктуваше какво да прави. Имаше уточнения с въпроси от страна на учителя и прецизиране на някои неща от командите на ученика, допълнение от страна на учителя. Явно това беше нещо ново, което учениците до сега не са правили и като нови знания за съответния преса. И накрая имаше, когато те видяха всъщност какво се получава, имаше емоционалния момент, което показва вече желанието на учениците те също да се научат. За мен този урок беше добре степенуван и показан.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate our translators while I have the opportunity for translating all of the PE terminology. Well done.
Can I just add a couple of points? I'm sure you. I wanted to say that the key thing for me was the reinforcement of technical language in PE, also bringing in mathematics by saying right angle, and the fact that he constantly checked the children's understanding. Who's watching this part of my body? Who's watching that part of my body? And it's that repetition and that clear routines. And I don't know what this routine is, but as soon as he stood up, they went, yes, did you see that? I don't know why they do that, but they love it.
Yes, they do. I think that the modelling is a vital element to this lesson, and as you've quite rightly said, that can happen in every subject. It's not just in PE that the teacher should model what we expect the students to do. And what I found really skillful about what Stephen did is when his children didn't give really clear instructions, he purposely did the wrong thing. So when the student said, point your feet, he pointed his feet this way. And he said, oh, actually, point your feet forward, the student had to say. And he corrected it, so that
Precision.
Absolute precision is really important. If we want our children to give precise answers, we need to be taking precise answers all the time, not accepting a less good answer.
Can I say also that Stephen now is one of our key key trainers, and he's particularly effective on the use of literacy within PE and in any lesson, and also effective questioning.
So Stephen is our head of PE, but just like everyone else in the school, he is observed using some key language that we borrow from Ofsted. So my helpful assistants, Svetlina and Ina, now have some handouts for you. We're going to share with you two things. You will receive one of these, which is our lesson observation sheet. When I observe a lesson, I use this to capture everything I see. On the third page, and this will probably be useful for you, we have some of the Ofsted criteria. So descriptions of outstanding, good, requires improvement, and inadequate. I would say you need to create your own system. You can't just implement a foreign system into your school. And by foreign, I don't necessarily mean from a foreign country. I mean something taken from elsewhere. You need to make the system suitable for your context. But this is a useful framework that you could refer to. Another thing which I'm sharing with you is on this blue piece of paper. This is our checklist that we use to see if a lesson, if language we use to describe a lesson which is outstanding. So if we're trying to ensure that our grade is absolutely right of a lesson, we'll look to this for language which describes outstanding teaching. So for example, assessment is used as part of teaching and helped diagnose pupils' needs. Throughout that lesson, which was an outstanding lesson, Stephen used questions to assess whether the children had understood, and he used modelling to assess. He wasn't just questioning to pass the time, he was questioning for a purpose. And when we observe lessons, we always think, okay, is that questioning actually helping to improve learning? Is the teacher asking the right questions to the right children? So I would love to spend all day explaining the paperwork, but unfortunately we need to move, and I'd like to show you some more interesting videos. So take these away. If you want to ask me about them at lunchtime, you're more than welcome to. An important element of observation is what we do afterwards. And the next stage in observing a lesson is giving feedback. Now we're going to watch some very, very short examples of feedback. These are being acted by two members of staff in my school. They're not real feedback conversations, but they are examples of the sorts of feedback you may see in schools. Some good examples, and some not so good examples. And we're going to watch each one very quickly. They're only 30 seconds long. And I just want to take some thoughts as to what you think. Do you think this is a good example of feedback or not? And then afterwards I'll show you our key points for good feedback. So Eva with the first one. Thank you.
Hi Sarah.
Yeah.
Sorry mate.
Sorry.
Okay, your lesson. Right, I will email you the form.
Okay.
I'll sort that out. And, well, the lesson was definitely outstanding. Well done.
Brilliant, thank you.
Cheers.
Some great acting there from our assistant principal. And Sarah's head of drama, so she should be good enough. Any thoughts? Was that good feedback? No. Good. Was anything no? Any ideas why?
Good feedback because it didn't say anything particular.
Thank you.
First you say, well, at some time this week I'll give you an email. I'll email
you for
it. Was definitely outstanding, but why?
Yes,
and
but
what
why?
you did, and what were the things that you should really stress on and that you should be really confident on. Like that.
Perfect. I think you've summed it up. Same actors.
Hi Ross. Thank you for that lesson earlier, that was really good. I thought
obviously there were some really good things in there. The do now was, you know, straight away they were really punchy, they were really involved, 100% compliance the whole way through. There didn't seem to be any real behavioural issues. When there was, you went straight in, you spoke to them straight away, discreetly, and they, you know, back on task immediately. So I thought that was also great. Your activation phase really led on from what we were doing on the do now. It fed in brilliantly, so I thought that was great. And I could see from your lesson plan, the rest of the lesson was really building upon that do now and that activation phase. So I thought that was great. So brilliant, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Pilot. Good or not? So this is maybe a tougher one. What do you think? Be brave, yes.
Ние видяхме една оценка на урок, в който беше оценен учителя, но не разбрахме всичко това дали дава въпросното надграждащо обучение на децата. Тоест оценен беше той като планиране, като реализиране и всичко свърши до тук. За мен оценката е наполовина.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. I keep forgetting to apologise. I nod my head a lot and I realise that may not necessarily mean the same thing in Bulgaria. So I nod, it means I'm agreeing with you. So I apologise if I'm confusing people. Next.
Hi Ross.
Hi, sir.
Okay?
Yeah.
Good. All right, well thank you for letting me observe your lesson earlier. There were 5 reasons why that lesson was unsatisfactory. Do you think you can name them?
That was it.
Any thoughts? I haven't heard from any of the people who work for Teach for Bulgaria who have to give feedback. Do you think that was good feedback, Jeff? Just put you on the spot.
Well, when I try to give feedback, I usually don't start with, this was bad, tell me why. But, I mean, the idea of trying to get some input from them first before you deliver your observation, I think is good. Yes. But probably don't start with 5 reasons why this was a bad lesson.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
Okay, next.
So, how about starting your lesson?
Yeah, I think, well, it's all right. It's okay, can do better. If I maybe used some keywords from the beginning and not introduced them a little bit later on, that could be better.
Opinions?
It's like the teacher, the woman. She's on the spot of very like being examined, which is not good. I don't think that somebody can learn from this point. Plus, you don't have this nodding all the time, like accepting, or you have a blank face.
But the body language is an issue.
The body language is really crucial, and I don't think that it works.
There is one good thing though about this clip, which we haven't seen in the other clips. Can anyone work out what that good thing is? There's one good thing on this table.
She's given the chance to analyze her lesson and decide what's good and what's bad. And also, she's actually thinking about the lesson and particular points in her lesson so that she identifies the weak points.
Very good. Okay, one more. Last one.
So do you want to tell me about the start of the lesson?
Oh, it was really bad. It was awful, actually. I thought it was just an awful beginning to my lesson.
Well, let's start with what went well at the start of the lesson. I think actually the lesson was effective. So what were the positives of the start?
Okay. Positives were that the do now was there for them to see as soon as they walked in the room. There was something for them to be doing straight away, and a task for them to be getting on with and focusing on straight away.
Any ideas? You're very shy, much quieter than my teachers.
Тук на мен страшно много ми хареса това, че тръгнахме през отново опит на учителя да анализира своя час и това, което на нас много често ни се случва, да напомним на учителя първо да помисли за хубавите неща. Единственото, което тук все още не виждам е, че когато ние се опитваме да анализираме урока, винаги се опитваме да тръгнем от резултатите на учениците. Тоест не просто как е минал часа, кое беше хубаво в часа, ами да изведем хубавите неща и областите за подобрение през това, което успяха да научат учениците. И затова ние винаги тръгваме от резултати.
Yes, it's a good point. Thank you for that. It was very useful. I think that's really important. I mean, we don't have time to watch a full feedback session because feedback tends to last between 15 and 30 minutes, and we certainly would expect to see reference to the children, I agree. But you're absolutely right. What was good here is Sarah was talking about her teaching, but also we started with positive, and that's really important. Teachers, as Delia said yesterday, we're our own worst critics. It's even when I'm observed, and I've been observed for years, and I'm observed all the time, it's much easier for me to think of what didn't work after a lesson, I'm sure you all feel the same, than it is to be really specific. But it's important after you teach, whether you're observed or not, to think, okay, what worked and what could have been better? Because if you keep building the things that work, then those will become absolutely sound experts. And the things that aren't working are things you can continue to develop, so it's important to know what they are. We have some golden rules for feedback in our academy, and they are: you always start by asking the teacher to talk about what went well in their lesson before you talk about what went well. That's really important, as we just seen. Then you ask the teacher to talk about what could have been better. So again, the teacher leads the conversation before you give your feedback on what could have been better. And then at the end of the conversation, we ask the teacher to say, okay, do you think that was outstanding? Do you think it was good? Or which grade would you give yourself? And it's really important for us because we have ongoing training for teachers in how to observe other teachers. And every time we feed back, we are looking to make sure that our teachers' understanding of good and outstanding is the same as ours. And so I never say at the end of the feedback, and certainly never at the beginning, as Jeff said, I never say that was a good lesson, that was an outstanding lesson. I say, okay, what would you grade yourself? What would you give that lesson? And 99% of the time, possibly more, we have the same answer, which shows that we have a very consistent understanding of what good teaching is in our school. That takes time to get there, and you work in different contexts, but that's what you're aiming for. Everyone has the same understanding of what's good. The final part to our lesson observation toolkit, and you've seen evidence of this already today, is self-reflection. Now, self-reflection is when we video lessons, and there are a number of uses for this. We video a lesson and we watch it ourselves. So I can go to my IT manager and say, I want to video my lesson with this class next Thursday at 10 o'clock. And they record. We have 18 observation rooms in our school, which you can book to film a lesson. We also, in some rooms, as you saw with the PE lesson, we use handheld cameras, so you can do it lots of different ways. And that video, that DVD, is mine. Now, I might share it with someone to ask their advice. I might share it with someone to show a good example of something. But I don't have to do that. It's my property because it's for my development. The majority of teachers will share their video with somebody the majority of the time. Normally their mentor or their line manager or someone like me or perhaps Delia to ask our advice. We also use the videos for training, and the videos you've seen today we've used in training. So we're just going to hear for 2 minutes from some of our teachers the power of self-reflection, the power of using video to film ourselves.
This is a self-observation video. Basically, you go to an observation room, book in a slot, and take a class there. and afterwards sit down and watch it either by yourself for self-reflection, or we've often sat down together and watched either mine or Amy's video afterwards. In a way, observed it together.
Trying to see what's going on in the lesson and to talk about how a lesson went, what we want to do differently next time. And just looking at pace and transition between different activities and individual pupils, what are they doing, are they feeling engaged?
So it's good to move around the room, and you're making about yourself. Be interesting to see exactly what that child is doing. So obviously we're watching this video on Emmy's computer in her classroom now, but one of the things we've done before is we've watched lessons live. So you sit in the observation room, and what you can do then is when you think somebody over here might be paying attention, you just use the joystick to zoom the camera.
And you can actually see really clearly what students are writing either in their books or in their whiteboards. That's useful.
So in science what we do is we schedule ourselves in to record ourselves at least once every half term. This is a recording room. There's cameras up, 3 in this room, and 7 extending them throughout. You do learn a lot from, definitely from the first one, because you are very much looking at, if I was to teach that exact lesson again, I know exactly now what I'm going to do differently.
Learn lots of things really. I've learnt exactly what children are doing at the back of the classroom when you think that they're doing what you ask them to do. They're also really nice to watch for other people. But it's all very well telling someone this is a really good behaviour management technique, but if you can just watch a 20-second clip of someone doing it in your department in a classroom that's exactly like yours, it's much easier to be able to copy what they're telling you than if someone's just telling you what to do.
And the point is that it's not a threatening thing for somebody to have a video of you. It's also for the department. It makes it being a reflective practitioner, co-planning every day. It's the fact that we make some mistakes. Some things are good about our videos, some things are things we want to work on, and that's the way it is.
It is important to be reflective as a teacher. You have to be, simply. Yeah, you could live in a bubble and think every lesson I teach is an outstanding lesson, but is it really?
We tell the children all the time to do exactly the same thing. At the end of a lesson, think back, what have you learned over the lesson? At the end of the topic, what parts are you still struggling with? What do you need to fill in? So if we're telling them to do it in order to improve, we need to do it in order to improve.
Everyone, without realising it, is becoming more reflective if they weren't before. New staff members and everyone else in the department can see that I'm open about my teaching, I'm willing to improve, and that even though I've got X years of teaching experience, I'm still willing to improve and I still need to improve.
Like if you're not willing to have your classroom door open when you teach and let people come in and watch you, because you've looked back and thought this is the best, this is the best I can do. I think it's pretty sadly.
Reflective practice is an everyday thing. Next.
Well done today. Thank you very much, Annabelle. I hope you, it's fascinating. I still enjoy watching clips from a school that I've seen so many times before. And if you can even get a handheld camera, it is so informative for yourself. You don't have to have a big school production to know what it is that you, to learn something from your own classroom. Yeah, you can use your phone. Thank you so much, Annabelle. Moving on. So, basically, how do we know we're focusing on the right things when we're training? For us, it comes back to our teaching and learning policy, and I know so many of you are asking about this. Unfortunately, I don't have any spare copies of this, or even on a PDF, but you can't really import. I will give it to some people. Some people are coming to visit the school, so I will send some across. But you can't really import from other places. You have to start from where you are. You have to say, what is it currently now that I believe in, or a few of us in my school, we believe together are the important things, the important aspects of teaching and learning in our classrooms. So all of our staff training comes back to that, but it's also based on research, pretty much accepted research worldwide. I came back to our 13 treasures, so I picked out of them yesterday these crucial ones for us. I think during the course of the morning you've seen us talk about a 4-part lesson. You've heard quite a few people talk about the do now. So the moment the children come into the classroom, they're engaged in doing something. They have to do something. They're not listening just to us talking. Questioning. If you haven't got questioning in your classroom, how do you know, what is your feedback from the students in terms of their understanding? How good is the questioning? Annabelle said quite openly, sometimes you do it, I want one word. Yes, but mostly you're saying open-ended questions. Give me your answer. That's very interesting. Can anybody over here build on that question and give me some more information? Or you find that difficult? Phone a friend. Who will help you over there? So you're moving round the classroom. You're moving and you never go for hands. Cold calling. Do you understand cold calling? Never let them know who's going to be picked on. All of these things. Learning takes place through dialogue, and that's exactly what we're talking about. And every teacher is a teacher of language. Stephen, in that PE lesson, demonstrated. And assessment is an ongoing dialogue. The students will peer assess each other's work. We will assess through dialogue and talking to the children. And our feedback is vital. In fact, most research shows that the feedback you give to a student has more impact than anything else. Secondly, I think this is just summing up. Everyone has examples of best practice. So everybody is developing their school-based training. It is not an external thing. There is not an external expert. You need to develop it in your own school, with your own staff, with your own teachers, because teachers will recognise and listen to other teachers from their own school if they respect the work that they're doing. Everyone needs learning, and we use pedagogy in our delivery of training. In other words, that means we try to do a little bit of it today, to use dialogue, questioning, a do now. Training is an active process. For your staff to learn something in their heart, they have to be engaged in that process. It is not me standing up and telling you. And one of the things that, if we have a particular aspect of training, say for example, I keep using questioning, if we are training on questioning, the following week, Annabelle will actually get a series of observations where we are going into classrooms to look at the questioning that they're using as a direct impact of the training. Because so often training goes nowhere. So the more focused it is on specific aspects, and the more you say, okay, go away and practice that now. Practice, practice. We all learn through practice, just like basketball players. Then you go and practice the questioning, and we try and capture that.
So I thought what might be useful is to show you an example of this in practice. So last year, we realised that a key area of development for our children was to build their understanding in lessons. The difference often between a good lesson and an outstanding lesson is that the teacher doesn't assess the understanding enough or give the children enough time to put their new knowledge into practice. And we realised there were some key ways of doing this. One of those was modelling, which we saw earlier with the PE example. The other was discussion. And one of our vice principals, David Benson, who you can see here, he decided that he would show an example from his class. Now, do you remember the first video we showed you with the lesson with the hands and the pen? the creative student with the pen. That was his lesson. And he shared that video clip with us on purpose because he attempted to do an activity which didn't work. And rather than becoming defensive or worried, he thought, hang on a minute, this is a great opportunity for me to show teachers how sometimes things don't work because we haven't prepared them properly. So he then went back to the same class. This is the next lesson. And he decided to introduce some structure to help the children to work in pairs, which is what they were supposed to have been doing. At the time, he's an English teacher, and they were learning Romeo and Juliet. And in the previous lesson, they should have been discussing Romeo and Juliet and writing a joint answer. But that didn't work. So I'm going to first show you what he did next. And he filmed this and shared it with all of the teachers to show how you can improve discussion. So we're going to watch the next 2 short sections, the next lesson and the one after that, to show how he changed the activity. So,
Mr. Benson's top 4 rules for discussion. Everyone has to talk, everyone has to listen, everyone has to think, turn and face.
Okay, what are you going to mean by turn and face, that last thing?
When teaching programs, discussing, turn and face.
Why? Why do you think that? So you have eye contact. So you can talk properly, so you can show respect, so you have eye contact. And we're going to practice. Right, Miss, can you read the next slide for me? As she reads it, read it to yourself.
Some hot topics to discuss.
Good. Hot topics to discuss. Controversial topics.
Person A, near the door.
Now, particularly every time we do a discussion, being like, you're A, you're B, you're A, you're B. You know what? You are always A. You are always B. You are always A. You are always B. You and who's supposed to do it? So next, you guys are always A. You guys are always B. You guys are always A. You guys are always B. Okay, so what are you, Shuri? What are you, Ali? Why are you A? What are you, Jamal? Why are you A? Because you're closest to the door. Right, so everyone knows what they are.
Person B, near the window. Person A, what's your favourite breakfast cereal?
Right, so we're going to give it a go. Right? Remember the 4 rules? Everyone has to talk, everyone has to listen, everyone has to think, everyone turn the face. We're going to give it a go. I want you to have a discussion about what your favourite breakfast cereal is. A's will go first, and the B's will listen, and the B's will come back, and the A's will listen. 3, 2, 1, turn back. Now, this time, I want the A's to stand up in a second and tell the B's, and then I want when you finish standing up, so you finish telling, you sit down, and then the B's are going to stand up. I'm going to give you a new topic. Sheree, read the new topic for us. Okay, so I'm going to count down. I'm going to count down. I'm going to get to 0. A's stand up, tell the B's, and then when you finish, sit down, and the B's stand up, tell the A's. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
you can tell me what you think of that later, if you like. But what David was doing there was he decided that without some structure in place to actually encourage discussion and enable discussion, then the discussion was never going to work. So he took away Romeo and Juliet for one lesson, and they talked about your favourite breakfast cereal, who your favourite teacher is, I think your favourite actor, which is very controversial, and really gave children something they could talk about easily, easy topics, but encouraged discussion, and spent the lesson practicing how we discuss in our classroom. We're now going to watch the next lesson, where he brings Romeo and Juliet back into the classroom, and how they use the discussion tools to actually manage to learn and achieve their objective, unlike the first lesson. So, here you go.
A little bit about that essay. I'm just waiting for 2 or 3 people to sit in a boat. The question to the essay is on the board. Can you read it for us?
Assistant question. How does Shakespeare present the character of Romeo and Juliet in the series?
So that's what you need to do. You need to answer this question. Let's show you a model PEA answering that question. As it comes on the board, read it to yourself in your head. Everybody think of 3 things that make a good PA. 3 things make a good PA. And not things like it's developed or it uses a quote. 3 specific things. I'll give you 30 seconds to think. Has everybody got their 3 things? Everywhere? Right, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds, Mark. And then you try to think what makes this a good PA. Okay, this time we're going to do this in our pairs, A's and B's. When I say and not before, so there's always to work by yourself on this one. When I say and not before, A is going to stand up. You're going to tell the person 3 good things about his PA. Then after 30 seconds, I'm going to sit you down, and B is going to stand up. Okay, 3, 2, 1, A, stand up.
So the reason I am sharing this with you is because all of these video clips were used in 2 training sessions, and this is how David structured the training. So he introduced an example of when something didn't work. He showed what he did next, immediately after it not working. He followed up with a 3rd lesson to show them then putting those skills into practice. In the training, he gave all of the teachers some key questions to link what he'd done to their own teaching. That's important. He didn't just give this example and say, okay, finished. He said, this is what I did. Now, how would you do this with your subject, with your children, to ensure that when you discuss learning, the children are all actively involved? And then he gathered all of the examples from all of the different teachers and he shared it publicly. So these are the questions in the training. He asked teachers to think about these questions, and we discussed, just like you are today, we discussed in groups. I was sitting on a table with teachers from different subjects, and I said, well, in a language classroom, we would do this, we would do this. The science teacher next to me discussed what he would do. And then we shared all of our ideas together. And then David and I took all of the examples, and this is what the teachers came up with. So you can see from 1 hour of training, we had all of these examples of how to use discussion in a meaningful way in a classroom. And that is the model that we find most effective in training our staff. We use examples from our classrooms. It's very powerful because the teachers are seeing our children. Those children, we know them. The children with the fingers and the pen, we know those children. So we know whether they are creative. We know whether they are engaged. We know the context of our school. And that makes it even more powerful for us. Then we use examples of how to fix issues, which, as you can see, this is a senior member of team, a vice principal, who shared something that didn't work in his classroom, and then shared what he did to change it. So as Delia has said, we're all very open with sharing, and I share things that don't work in my classroom with teachers, because not everything works. And we all know that as teachers. That's why it's such a good job, because we have to constantly change and refine our practice. And then we use our intelligence and knowledge in the room, and we gather all of our ideas together, and we share them with each other. And as Delia said, the follow-up from this was we then scheduled a series of observations where we went and observed each other to look specifically at discussion in the classroom, specifically at how we use discussion to improve learning. And we then obviously have more examples and more videos to use. So I think this encapsulates very well some of the key ideas that underpin our approach to training. I'm going to pass back to Delia to sum up.
Thank you, Annabelle, and thank you to you for listening so well this morning. We've covered an awful lot of ground in a very short time, but I hope some things have just, there might be 1 or 2 issues that you can take back to your own school or to your own practice and think about. I think the thing that Annabelle certainly spends a lot of time talking about, and it's her hobby horse, but she's absolutely right, is if we want to be regarded in our country, in our town, in our community, with high standing, we have to have a culture of professionalism. If we want to be, have high status, we have to operate in a professional manner. So I'm going to ask you and give you just a little bit of time in your team. No feedback. I'm sorry, I'm always doing this, aren't I? Sorry, to chat with each other about what do you need to do in your school to develop professional dialogue. What do you currently do? And what would work for you? Have a chat. Go. Just to say that everybody can start somewhere, and if there is no culture of observation in your school, the very, very best way, I think, to start is to get a like-minded colleague and start peer observation. You don't have to have a commission. You just watch each other, people who are actively agreeing to do it. In fact, when I started observation in our previous school years ago, I'm not admitting to it, I introduced it because there was no culture of it in the school at all. We started with saying, who wants to observe who agrees to observe who, peer to peer. That develops trust. And it's the culture of trust that you need to develop with your colleagues that will help. Right, before, we've got one more video clip, and I hope you enjoy this. Everything comes back to learning. We're not doing it just to, empower ourselves. We're doing it because we want the children to understand the importance that we place on teaching and therefore their learning. This clip is, we're asking children what they think good and outstanding teaching is about. This is just taking place, this video, after we've done a review week. So they do their assessments, and then we spend a week reviewing their assessments before we even give them their marks. Because once you give them their marks, they stop listening. That's true. That's the world over. All they'll listen to is what they got and want to know what their best friend got. And that's the end of the discussion. So, that we have a review week, and it's powerful. Thank you.
So what is it that you do in science after you do your assessment?
Yeah, the anything has to be given at me.
Okay, and what happens when you get your assessments back in science?
We have to mark them ourselves. So we go over the questions in class, then we mark them in the paper, and right now like what went well, even better is, and the marks we get for it.
Okay. Kalisha, what do you find useful about the way science do their review?
Because he'll mark our papers and then he'll say what did majority of us get wrong, and then in the lesson, before our review lesson, we'll go over it so we know what we have to do to get the marks the next time.
So how is this lesson in particular helping you, or preparing you for that?
It's preparing me because I had no idea how we measure currents and all of it works, so it's now learning about it now is teaching me how to do it properly. It's useful because if I get a question wrong and I don't know what to do, I can ask the person next to me and go, what did you get? And then if he'll explain it to me, so if Drew will explain it to me, and then I'll understand, but if I don't fully understand it, then I can ask Sir, and he'll go through it step by step with me, so next time I know what I have to do.
Would you recommend this way of doing review?
After we have a chat with the teacher, and then she asks us what we can do to improve it. It helps us because it gives us a hint to what we have to improve our levels.
You've been successful when the children understand why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that is true for, hopefully, for every child in our school. We've ended with the children. And everything comes back to that. Everything comes, do our children understand what is happening in the classroom and why they're doing it? So I'm going to, before I do our thank yous, I'm just going to say that here are some of our references. And I'm going to ask Evo, can you get our website up? Evo, if we can try and get our website up, I want to... This is our website, so arcacademy.org, www.arcacademy.org. I don't know if it's if you have internet or not. You have some. If you want to click on secondary. Yeah, on the yeah, done. Click. It's slow internet. Okay. And if you go to, well, there's me. News. Go to news. They like their cricket. Latest videos. Yeah. We have a video that we took of the children at the end of our second year. You know the video that we talked about co-planning, co-observation. There's also co-teaching. That is there as well. So a lot of this, you can, if you go on our website, get the videos of what we've been doing today. Some of it. So I hope that's helpful, plus our newsletters and what we tell our parents and what we tell everyone else. Please feel free, particularly our case studies are on there. If we go back to news again, Ivo. Is it news about or about us? I can't remember. It's about us. Teaching case studies. Have we got the case studies here? No? Yeah, Stefan. Case studies. When we opened the school, I realised that not many new. It's quite unusual to open a new school, and the few people who've done, they haven't written what they've learned in opening a new school. So we wrote our own case studies, and virtually every member of staff who set the school up, from the head of maths to myself to David Benson, who you saw, they all wrote a case study, and it covers an awful lot of both the teaching and learning, but also the ethos and the values that we hold. I'm going to pass over now to Annabelle to thank some very special people who have helped us make this morning work so well. But I would like to say I'm so grateful for you. I hope you enjoyed the morning. I hope you learned something from it. And I'm also very grateful for your attention and your participation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Celia. And just if I add to that before we finish, can we say a big thank you to Ivo for his amazing video management. We have a lot of demands, and the video was a big part of that, so thank you. To the ladies for the incredible translation of all of our classrooms. And to Cecily and Alina for helping with microphones and people. And I'd just like to echo what Delia said, and thank you very much for inviting us here. A huge thank you to Settlin and to Jenny for inviting us and making us feel so welcome. We've had a wonderful time in Sofia, haven't we? We're going to go back telling everyone what a wonderful country this is and how good your tomatoes are. So. And your red wine. And your red wine, yes. So thank you very much.
Lunch.